The battle is on to add a new museum to the impressive and diverse lineup in Washington, D.C. Of course, you have the Smithsonian, but also the National Postal Museum, the National Building Museum, even the National Bonsai and Penjing Museum. But the one museum that stayed on the drawing board for more than a decade is a National Women's History Museum. And joining me are two representatives fighting to change that. We rarely see backing anything together. New York Democratic Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney and Tennessee Republican Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn. It's good to have both of you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
So you're co-sponsors of this bill to try to make this museum a reality. Took you 5 years just to move a 7-ton statue of suffragettes out of the Capitol crypt into the Capitol Rotunda. Congresswoman Maloney, is this a sign of why it's taken so long for this museum to get up and running?
Well, it always seems to take more effort for anything pertaining to women, but Marsha and I are determined to pass this bill, and we have strong bipartisan support in the Senate, too, with Senator Collins and Murkowski. We have over 50 co-sponsors in the House and over 50 organizations supporting it, and the National Women's History Museum for a spot on the mall or near the mall is a bipartisan initiative that is dedicated to honoring women and their important contributions to our country and our history, and inspiring a new generation of leaders. Little girls should be just as inspired as little boys when they come to their capital, but regrettably women are largely missing from history books, from monuments, from statues. Of the 210 statues in the Capitol, only 13 are of women, and of the 2,400 historical sites in our country, only 5% are women. This history museum would change that and tell an important story.
Congresswoman Blackburn, you'd think it might be easier given that we have a record 101 women in Congress. Right. So beyond what we just heard from your colleague, make your case. What would be the mission of the museum? Why do you think this is so important?
Chris, I think it's important for people to realize that this would be a privately funded museum. We know that it takes longer to get it done through the governmental agencies and the processes. So what they have done, women have banded together, formed a 501c3. It's a nonprofit organization. The museum would be covered entirely by private donations.
Is that a change, Congresswoman? Because I think in 2010, Republicans Tom Coburn and Jim DeMint blocked a bill because they said we shouldn't be spending money on this.
Right, and what this would do is the bill that Carolyn and I have would establish, it would give permission for a commission to be pulled together to study the issue and find that site that Carolyn is talking about. And then we think women who are all across this country, conservative and liberal, will come together and say, let's have a museum that gives us the opportunity to talk about the greatness of Deborah Sampson and Clara Barton and Susan B. Anthony and so many women who have served our nation well and have been not only participants but activists for the cause of freedom and for women getting the right to vote.
I was telling you that I had gone to a museum dedicated to Harriet Tubman, and first of all, the volunteer who was in there knew everything, so that was pretty amazing. But it was clear that this was a place that was put together by people who cared about Harriet Tubman. There was no real backing behind it. Do you think that's because she's a woman? Do you think that it's harder? Whenever
I think it's definitely harder, and I'm pleased that there was a museum for Harriet Tubman. At least it's a start. But this would chronicle the achievements of women in so many areas. Take Hedy Lamarr. Most people think of her as a glamorous movie star, but she was a scientist too, and developed a technology that led to cell phones and Wi-Fi, a torpedo that was wireless during World War II. There's so many.
I had no idea. That's amazing.
That's why we need, and the 501c National Women's History Museum has already raised $12 million and been in existence since we moved the statue out of the basement and into the rotunda of the Capitol. We had to raise money to even move that statue. So we've been working for a long time and putting all of this up on the internet and working for a museum. We need a site to put all of this together. And I can't find a museum anywhere. You mentioned the Stamp Museum and others, but there is not a museum in Washington or in the world or in the country that I'm aware of that dedicates its whole effort to chronicling the contributions and really honoring the many hard work and achievements of women.
Congresswoman Blackburn, we're out of time, but I want to ask you really quickly, if people want to learn more about this, where should they go?
They can go to my website, blackburn.house.gov. They can follow me Facebook, Marsha Blackburn, Twitter, @Marsha Blackburn, and Carolyn has hers, Maloney.house.gov. And we think that women across the country, conservative and liberal, are going to say this is a worthy cause. We're grateful to the House leadership and Chairman Candace Miller for helping us have the hearing on the bill and putting the wheels in motion on the process.
Well, I have to say, I think people are relieved all across the country to see bipartisanship, whether it's the budget or something like this. And maybe you will have you back on working on even something else.
Sure.
So, Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney and Marsha Blackburn, thanks to both of you.
Good luck.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much.
And if you read only one thing this morning, my must-read today is about the first jobs of celebrities who grew up in the 60s. You'll never guess which actor was a dancer at the 1964 World's Fair. Check it out. It's up on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think. Facebook/JansingCo.